Well, I finally finished my new Phantom EP four-wheel drive EXT CRC-II. There's a lot of letters to do with this kit, but I finally finished, and I haven't driven it yet. We're gonna take it outside today and drive it, but this kit proves that good things come in small packages. So today, we're gonna take a look at the build I did and talk a little bit about some issues with it, and then we're gonna take it outside and drive it. So stick around. Okay, so let's take a look at this car. So here it is. I have it stacked over on the side. I think it's beautiful. I did not go with a yellow. This is actually orange. A lot of people think it's gold, but it's actually orange. So we'll talk about the paint, because painting this car, not as straightforward, not as quite as easy as you may expect. Anyway, let's take a nice close look. When I watched RC Kick's show on this car, he said how difficult it was to put on these front decals here on the edges, but actually I didn't find it that hard at all, or matching up the edges. So I didn't find the decals to be too hard. What I did find difficult was the actual painting of these fins. These are not designed to be painted, and if we look very close, you can see I have made a bit of a mess up here. So I figured out how to stop that from happening after I had it happen. If I was to do it again, I think I could avoid the problem I had, and I'll tell you how. Let's take a nice up close look at this car, and I'll talk a little bit about the building experience, and then we'll go drive it, and I'll talk about the driving experience. So let's take a look. So here we are. We'll just pull the body pins out. I'll take a look inside, and I'll show you these issues on these fins. So the problem is the fins are extremely thin, and I paint with the spray cans. So I think if you're painting with a airbrush, it would actually be a little bit easier, but not easy, but easier. So let's pull the body off. In painting this, you'll notice I have these epoxied pieces on the back to keep my sides in place. So what happened is I was trying to bend out the side panel to get paint on the inside of this wing and inside of this fin, and it breaks the body shell right here. And this one broke right here. So I just epoxied these pieces on to give it some rigidity so it doesn't split more, but kind of unfortunate. So be careful of that. It's very difficult up in this fin. So we'll take a close look. You can see mine is not perfect, to say the least. And we see a big run here. So what happens is, as you're trying to get paint inside, it builds up on the flat surface. So as a solution to this issue of getting these paint pools, which if you're doing anything metallics or anything, this is actually two-stage paint, you'll end up with these thick spots and it looks bad, but can fix it. So I suggest if you're painting this, paint all the flat surfaces, paint everything up the way you want it, finish it off, and let it dry for like 1 day, and then try to pry this open without breaking the edge, but try to pry it open and try to paint the inside afterwards. Because if the paint pools and the paint is already set, you won't end up with a discoloration. So I suggest painting all the flat surfaces first. Also, you might notice some runs up here. I smoked the glass doesn't really, you can kind of see my finger there. I smoked the glass and I painted the driver, and some of my paints kind of dissolved when I put the smoke paint on. So it kind of ran down and it made a little bit of coloration here. Well, I guess masking that off. But for these fin parts, if you don't have an airbrush, I think with an airbrush you get fine enough tip that you get inside here. But if you don't have an airbrush, I suggest painting everything and then going back and painting your fins as best you can. And you don't have to worry about paint building up anywhere and ruining how it looks on the outside. So it's not too bad. So the paint on this is clear orange, clear translucent orange with bright silver backing. And I love the effect because you'll get thicker spots and thinner spots as you do with paint, but it's translucent. And then you put the silver behind it, it shows up, I like to say, almost like candied apple. So you get the kind of thicker areas, it's a little bit thicker here than it is here, actually adds a lot of depth to the paint. So I think it's a beautiful paint job. It's a pity I tried it with these fins because, and then I didn't think as I did it, and I really, you can see it here, there's quite a bubble of paint. I really put a lot of paint here and then it pooled and it was fine, but then it wasn't. So, not the easiest thing to paint, but I think it's quite beautiful if you just ignore kind of these fins. So very pleased with that. Very nice body. Didn't find the decals to be very difficult to put on. Just pay attention. You want to line up this one with this one. I did place these too close and then I peeled them and put them on again. No problem. Pulling them off and putting them back on. Didn't get any stretch marks. So I'm very pleased with decaling this. Some of my cars I don't put decals on. Some of them I put all of them on. This one I put all of them on. And I think it looks great. And I think it looks better in my orange than it does in the yellow on the box. That's just me. You can let me know in the comments if you agree, if this is a better paint scheme than Kyosho's. Let's take a look at the car. So as I said at the intro, good things do come in small packages, and this is a very small package. And for that reason, it may be a bit difficult to actually fit things inside. I had two problems when I built this. One, the motor I had, if you looked at the unboxing I was going to put in, didn't fit. And the problem was it's a sensor brushless motor, and we have this frame back here holding the rear axle and holding the motor in place so you mount the motor, and it blocked the sensor wires. So that's something to be aware of. When you're building this, check your motor. The one I wanted to put in, the sensor wires were right at the bottom and there was no way to angle it to get them in. So I had to get a different motor. And this motor, you may notice, is a bit shorter. This is the new, let's see if we can get a close up there. This is the new Hobby Wing handout spec stock motors, and they're actually about 1 centimeter shorter. So there's some gap in there now. That's fine. So what I've put in for electronics, here's the box, 21.5 turn, XE run, just stock, G3. Beautiful thing about it, and where it's going to help in a lot of builds if you're building, is the sensor wires can go in from the top, which I have put them in from the top, but they can also go in from the side. So there's actually two connectors for the sensor wires, which I think is brilliant actually. Now, the next thing was the servo. So I bought a standard servo. I'm like, oh, I need a servo, and I bought a standard servo. Standard servos do not fit, and in the manual it says to use a Kyosho servo, which I could not find. I even checked Hong Kong and Japan. I couldn't find the Kyosho servo. If you're building one of these, you can try get an OMG. So this is an OMG servo. You can see OMG written right there. It is an OMG servo, and the size is exactly correct. So it's OMG MI or M1, not sure, 08 cm. So this is the servo they build, and they say it's for the Kyosho motorcycle. So anything that'll fit the Kyosho motorcycle will fit perfectly in this kit. It's the same size servo. So this is quite nice. It is Metal Gear and coreless digital. So it's actually a very nice servo, and you can get them for probably about $20. So nice. Now, for the ESC, because I didn't want to get, or I couldn't get a Kyosho ESC, I'm running XR10 Pro stock spec. And I really like these because they're so tiny. They're the smallest ESC I have bought, and I have them in several vehicles. I have it in my Optima Mid, for example. So here it is with the fan mounted inside. Now, to get the fan to fit, it's about 2 millimeters too high. So I put in, I don't know if that's going to show up on camera, but there's a little spacers on the front. So this top frame piece, I put two 2 millimeter spacers, one on either side, just to make sure the fan could spin and not catch on this. That's the electronics. So electronics are a little bit special. Be careful of your motor. Make sure you can get the sensor wires in. Make sure you get the right size servo. It takes a tiny micro servo. Not a tiny, it takes a medium small. So I have smaller ones, they don't fit. And if you want to put an ESC in, yeah, really recommend this ESC. They're not cheap, but they are quite good. So that's the car. Very cool. Chain drive, also very, very cool. Good diff in the back. In the front is direct drive, but with a, I forget what you call that. So it only goes one direction. Oh, one way, with the one way in. So very nice, very compact. Can make fitting things a little bit difficult, and the battery just gets taped in. So I'm running a battery that can fit Tamiya cars. This is a LiPo, 2S LiPo, 21.5 turn motor, 80 amp ESC, and this Metal Gear servo. So I had this for a little drive around the house, around the carpet, and it flies. So I can't wait to get it out. Now this is the Fantom, the second edition Fantom, so it does have a little bit of suspension. I don't know if you can see that from there, but a little bit of suspension with a FRP chassis bends on the shock. And in the front, there is slight suspension on these wheels. There's springs on either side. So a little bit of suspension. It does ride quite low, and it's really suitable if you have a carpet track. This would be amazing. So if you have a carpet track, very suitable car. This thing is gonna go like the wind. So let me plug it in. We'll turn it on. Okay, so it's turned on. You can see the fan spinning there. So at 21.5 turn, it looks like it's gonna fly. So a couple notes on building. When you're building this, you really need to use thread locker. There's lots of metal parts and the screws go into, so you really want to thread lock everything. There is no plastic. So it's all FRP. Well, there's little, like the servo saver and the ends of the rods are plastic, but pretty much this is FRP chassis and aluminum. So you want to use your thread locker. Make sure you thread lock everything so it doesn't come apart. The chain can be a bit tricky to install, to hook it and close it. Make it as tight as possible. This chains get longer as you use them, so this chain will stretch. So don't make it loose when you start. It'll drag on the ground. So mine's pretty tight. There is tape you can put over to help protect things. I haven't done that yet. Might do that before we drive. But yeah, so that's some advice. As far as the build went, it was quite good. Very enjoyable build, very unique. Everything is unique to this car. So I think getting parts like the wheels and such, you can't just use standard wheels. So maybe some things like that, if you drive it a lot, will get a bit annoying. You'll have to find replacement tires and such. But very, very cool. There's no bumper. You don't want to crash it. It's just a piece of plastic up front. There are upgrades. You can get an upgrade axle for the front. So there's a few upgrade parts that Kyosho has that I'm not bothering with. This is actually a very well done kit as it is. So we'll just keep it standard. And yeah, I think it's gonna go fast. So let's go find out how fast this can go and how well does it steer. 4-wheel drive, it should actually steer really, really well. So we'll take it outside. I'll put up some cones. I want to drive around the cones, and let's see how this car works. So let's go. All right, we're gonna try here. This is really not ideal conditions. We have to go find another spot. But we'll turn it on, we'll give it a run. We haven't run this yet, so radio on. Car is on. And let's see what happens. Hitting the rock. Not ideal. Not smooth enough. Not ideal enough. All right. We're testing. I wonder what the speed is on this little car. Let's see. Alright, let's see if that works. Stop. Breathe. 44 kilometers an hour. Not bad. Not bad. 44. 44 is pretty good. Stop. Read 44. So I guess that's as fast as we can go. But it works really well. It's kind of like a mini infraction. That's what it feels like to drive. I mean, we should take the infraction out, but you can just turn it and power slide it. I think that's pretty cool. Steering's nice and fast. Very precise. Very small turning circle. Tiny. Four-wheel drive.
This is definitely a small little package with a lot of fun and excitement in it. Works fairly well. Suspension does help when you're driving on kind of bumpy surfaces. You can see the tires are wearing. The chain has stretched a bit. I can put my finger underneath it now. It was right against the battery. The battery hasn't really worn on the chain, but it has worn by scraping the street. So really fun, definitely not an off-road car. The four-wheel drive helps in the cornering, nice and quick in the cornering, very stable. But when you brake, it's only braking on the rear wheels because it has that one-way up front. So it tends to spin around, but I find that helps because you're going towards the wall, you brake and it's pointing away from the wall and you can power away. Awesome car. So if you're into building models and you haven't built a Phantom or a Phantom EXT, whatever this is called, CRC-II. Definitely go for it. And if you have a carpet track, I think this thing would perform even better on carpet. But 44 kilometers an hour on the street there, that's not too bad. Pretty happy with that overall speed. So that's all for today. Love this car. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We might hit 400. Then we're only 600 away from 1,000. And then I can make like $13 a month and pay for my YouTube premium, which would be awesome. All right, guys, catch you next time.